everyone. So tonight we have a great guest, Bob Peterson. He has served the real estate community for over 35 years. With his real estate business, he has been an amazing mentor to thousands, and he also specializes in principal for sales and marketing and finances. So Bob will sometime give you his email for everybody who wants to keep in contact with him. So let's give a warm welcome to Bob.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Bob,
great. All right, fine. Thanks for the nice introduction. I'd like to thank you for the nice introduction. This is my first opportunity, really, to speak to a static audience. I have always in the past spoken to a live audience, and the animation, of course, always helps provide the appropriate energy for any kind of speaking engagement. But this is a new experience, and I hope that you will all kind of help me through it if I need a little nudge here and there. My particular thanks to Bay Area Multifamily and Attunement for organizing this meeting tonight, and particularly to Neil and the efforts that he had to expend this evening just to get this this webcast online. I'd like to begin by telling you a little bit about myself and how I got into this business, and I think it will be helpful in terms of any relationship that we might have in the future. And so I'd like to kind of start at the beginning. I got into the real estate business very much by accident. I had been enjoying a very successful career in business with the Shell Oil Company. I was forced by a series of unforeseen circumstances to leave the company out of necessity, and from there I went into business for myself. That too was very successful, but for other reasons I found myself eventually in the real estate business. I had been encouraged to go into the business by a business associate of mine who suggested that maybe it would be a good opportunity. And so I got started, and I have to confess, in the early years, it really wasn't very prosperous for me. I didn't do very well. I was, quite frankly, failing, and it wasn't until a Christmas Eve party that I attended with my daughters at their school when I encountered a friend that I had known for a number of years, Buzz Griffith. Buzz had been in the business for a while, and he had been very successful, and he asked me how I was doing, and he could tell that I was really very unhappy about the progress that I had made, and I finally had to confess to him that I had not been doing very well, that I was really failing, and that I didn't really think that I had a future in the business. And actually by that time I had taken a position with Sears selling floor covering at night, and I was trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do for a day job. I was still in the business, but I had one foot out the door, and Buzz had been very, very successful, and he'd been in the business about the same period of time, actually. And he said, Bob, he said, maybe there is an opportunity for you here. Perhaps you're just in the wrong part of the business. He said, have you considered the commercial side of the business, perhaps apartments or small commercial buildings? He said, I have been working in that market for a while, and he said, I know a little bit about it, and based upon what I know about you, I think perhaps you might have some of the skills and perhaps the appropriate aptitude for this business. Maybe all you have to do is just change your attitude a little bit, and you can find some success perhaps where you have not anticipated any opportunities. And I had considered commercial, but I had to admit to him that I really didn't have the time or the money to invest in what would be a particularly long learning curve. And he encouraged me to spend some time with him and to get started in the business, and he would show me how to become involved in the commercial side of the business without really changing anything that I was doing at the time. So I agreed to do that. And I spent some time with him, and he spent some considerable time and effort with me. And in a few months, it seemed that I was beginning to acquire not only the right attitude, but I recognized that I did have an aptitude for the business. And I had listed a couple of small apartment buildings, and I had made some important commercial contacts, and I was still continuing to make a living in the retail business, selling houses. Not very well, but I was adding to my income stream a little bit through both sides of the business. And as time went on, I began to just do a little better. And it was really through Buzz's encouragement and his help and just watching his prosperity that helped me adopt the appropriate attitude and the encouragement to stay in the business. It was one day that I was sitting at my desk in the office when I got a very fortuitous phone call, which led to perhaps the second most important mentor in my life. My banker called and told me that he had a client that had a building that they wanted to sell, and that he had talked to them a little bit about me and about the fact that I had been in the business for a while. Perhaps I could offer them some service. And so it was a nice opportunity. And so I went up to see Carl and Maureen Marks. Now, on my way up to their home, I was winding through one of the nicer areas in the community. In fact, it was a very nice upscale area up in the hills above the community where we lived. And the properties in that area at that particular time sold for probably $100,000 to $150,000. To give you some perspective, those properties today would probably sell in the area of about $3 million. So I was obviously impressed by the environment in which they lived, and as I approached their home, it was a beautiful place, and I knocked on the door, and this wonderful lady answered, Maureen, and she said, "Hi, Bob, welcome. Glad you could come." And so she welcomed me into the house, and she was a very gracious woman. And I spent some time chatting with her a little bit, and she said, you'll have to excuse us. Carl just got home from work. She said, he's a postman. And needless to say, you can imagine my surprise when I discovered that I was in the home of a postman, a mail carrier, that was living in one of the most prosperous communities, or prosperous areas in our community. And so we continued to chat, and it wasn't too long before Carl came out, and he was still in uniform, and he was a wonderful gentleman, and he welcomed me graciously, and he said, "Hi, Bob," and we had a chance to spend a little time together. It was all about small talk for the first few minutes, but then he said, "Look, the reason we wanted you to come up is because we have a building that we'd like to sell, and perhaps you can help us with it." Well, I really didn't know what to expect, but he took out a folder, and he kind of pushed it in my direction. He said, this is a 42-unit building that we own here in town. And I certainly wasn't prepared for that. I was new to the business. I was selling 2- and 3-unit buildings. The largest building that I had any relationship with up to that point was 5 units. And even that seemed a little large for me at the time. So this obviously was a property that I really didn't think that I was prepared to represent. So I looked through the property information that he provided for me, and he said, "Actually, Bob," he said, "this is probably one of the smallest properties that we own." And he went on to tell me that they had an 82-unit building in Oakland, and they had a 75-unit building in San Leandro, and that they had owned some commercial properties in the San Jose area as well. So I kind of fumbled through this data package that he gave me, and I tried to leave them both with the impression that I had some idea of what I was looking at, but the fact of the matter is I didn't. I was totally lost, and at least at that particular point in my career, I had the good sense to be honest, and I said, you know, I really don't think this is for me. I said, I don't think I've had enough experience to help you with this transaction. And I said, perhaps you ought to consider someone else. And so I stood up, prepared to leave, and I extended my hand to Carl. He said, Bob, as he shook my hand, he said, I think we can do some business together. And I had to tell you that I was surprised, to say the least. And Maureen Marks, being the gracious lady that she was, she looked at me and she said, Bob, we all have to start somewhere. And as it turned out, I discovered later that they had started about 15 years earlier. I think Maureen and Carl were approaching their 60s at that time. He wasn't too far away from retirement. And they were in the process of kind of consolidating their real estate investment interests, and their ultimate goal was to combine all their properties into a single asset. They were looking at California, but there was the possibility they would consolidate everything outside of California. But that was their overall goal, was consolidation into one property or no more than two. So they said, let's spend some time with this. Take the information back to the office, see what you can do about putting together a marketing package for us, and come on back and we'll talk about it. And so I was obviously humbled. I really didn't know what to do. I was very thankful that two people who really had very little need for me decided to take an interest in me and give me an opportunity to represent their property. So I got everything together, and I went back. I took the listing. We got the data package together. They went to great lengths to assist me in assigning all the proper data to the various documents that we were preparing for marketing, and they were just extraordinarily helpful. And they were really, next to Buzz, the second most important mentor that I had in my career. So I thought I had a pretty good deal here. I was beginning to form a better acquaintance with this property and properties of this size. My confidence was building, and I was beginning to think that I really had a future in this business. So I went ahead and we started to market the property. The marketing process wasn't too much different in those days than it is today, and I was quite disappointed by the fact that after about 30 days, I had not been very successful in marketing this property. We had gotten some interest, there had been some general inquiries, but my marketing efforts had been really a failure, and I was very concerned about whether I was going to be able to maintain my relationship with Carl and Maureen. And I was sitting at my desk one day kind of pondering the issues associated with marketing this property and what the heck I was going to do with it, when the broker came over, an old buddy of mine who had been a previous business associate of mine when I was in another industry, and he said, you know, he said, I got an idea on this. He said, why don't you take this outside and see if you can't get some help from some people that are in the business. And so he said, why don't you call Michael O'Keefe? Well, I knew Michael O'Keefe. Michael O'Keefe had been a real estate icon in our business and in the East Bay here in San Francisco for a number of years. And while I had heard of him, I had never met him, and I didn't know exactly what interest he would have in this particular property. I didn't even know whether or not he would talk to me. And in fact, I said, you know, I have no reason to believe that he would talk to me. And he said, sure. He said, he'll talk to you. So give him a call. So I called him up, and much to my surprise, he picked up the phone. He was at the other end, and he said, "O'Keefe." And I introduced myself. He said, "Oh," he said, "come on over." He said, "You got something you want to show me? I want to see it." So I went over to his office, and it was in a small strip center that he owned in San Leandro at that time, and his office was in a very small space right at the end. And it was a long, narrow space with a few desks in front, a place for a receptionist that had been vacated. And he was sitting alone in the back. And I walked through the door, and he said, "Bobby," he said, "come on back here." He said, "I want to talk to you. Let's see what you got here." So I felt very good. And this was certainly not the reception that I had anticipated. He was a great guy. And he took a look at the property, and by that time I had become very familiar with its particular benefits and features. And so as I rattled off all the benefits and features and told him why it was important that he take a serious look at this property, he listened carefully and with some interest. And then he finally turned to me and he said, "Bob," he said, "this is a nice property. In fact, I know who owns this property." He said, "I used to own this property." He said, "I sold this property to the O'Keefes." And he said, I know what they've done." He said, "They've done a marvelous job. They bought a property that we had bought and sold very quickly, and because it required a lot more work than we wanted to do, it really requires someone who would provide the kind of loving care and attention that it would require." And he said, "We don't make love to our properties." He said, "We just make money." We discovered very quickly that this property was going to take a little more time and effort than we wanted to put into it, so we sold it to Carl and Maureen, and he said, "They did a great job." He said, "I'm certainly aware of what they've done." And by that time, of course, they had completely remodeled all the units. They had put an outside wrap on the building. They had remodeled the landscape. They had removed the pool. The pool had become a liability, and they removed the pool. And they had turned what apparently was a very marginal property into a showpiece. And so Mike said, "Bob," he said, "this is a great property." He said, "I agree with you." He said, "It's a great property, but for somebody else." He said, "I don't buy these kinds of properties." And he said, "I don't suggest that you buy them either, or that your client should buy these kinds of properties." He said, this is fine for somebody that just wants a return." He said, "But we're in the business here to make money." And he said, "If there isn't some value-added potential in this property that will give us an immediate profit at the time of purchase, we're just not interested." And so I tried to appeal to him by saying that since he knew the property and that he had already had a prior experience with it, that it probably would be a good opportunity to pick it up and to add it to his inventory. And he said, "Nice pitch, Bob." He said, "But it just doesn't meet our added value requirements." And he said, "You're going to find, if you're going to be successful in this business, that you're going to look for value-added properties, and you are going to find people who are also looking for value-added properties, and that is where you are going to place the emphasis on your business, and where you're going to create not only value for your own investments, but you're going to create value for yourself in terms of your ability to represent your clients." So I had another mentor. I had a man that actually had an interest in what I was doing. So he said, "Bring me something else." I said, "Come back when you got something that we can buy, something where we can actually make some money." He said, "This is for someone else." So I went back to the office, and it was probably a week or 10 days later. The marketing process hadn't really gone any better. We just couldn't attract the right kind of buyer to this property. There was plenty of activity. The property was properly priced. O'Keefe had acknowledged that. But it was a very competitive market at that time, and there were a lot of other properties on the market. So I was becoming rather desperate. I didn't want to lose this opportunity. Carl and Maureen were being very patient, and they were doing everything they possibly could to assist me on their end. And one day, I got a call from Mike, and he said, "Bob," he said, "come on over here." He said, I want to talk to you." He said, I may have a buyer for your property. And he said, I want to take you for a ride. He said, I want to take you out and show you how we make money in this business. So I arrived at his office. He looked a little different than he did the first time. The second time that I arrived at his office, he was dressed a little more formally. The first time, he looked like he was right out of Central Casting, big burly Irishman, wearing some overalls and a pair of work boots. But on this particular occasion, he was dressed a little more formal, and he said, come on, let's take a ride. So we went out and we jumped in his pickup truck. His pickup truck still had a ladder hanging out the back with that little red flag that you see all the time. And we took a tour of his Bay Area properties. And he spent the entire afternoon showing me how he had acquired these properties, discussing the condition in which he had acquired them, the purposes for which they had been purchased, and the plan for which they had been purchased. And I really got a sense for the first time of what an extraordinary value-added business model looks like. So to kind of wrap up this story and to kind of give you an idea of the importance of these people in my life, they helped to shape my attitude. They helped to help me identify the real value, not only of my services, but of the products that I was presenting and offering to my clients, and the things that I needed to do in order to be a successful real estate investment consultant. And it was also reinforced by the knowledge that the things that I was doing to produce quality opportunities for my clients were the same things that they had to do for themselves, independent of my efforts. And I found that the great investors were always a step ahead of me. And I found that the great investors were the most informed investors. And in many cases, they knew more about real estate investing than I did. So the importance of meeting and becoming acquainted and developing relationships with people that could help me develop my business was very, very firmly impressed upon me very early in my career. So I had planned tonight to talk a little bit about the 9 value-added principles that I believe are critical to success and that we have always taught here at the Mentor Project to our members. I'm going to defer on that until next time because we are running out of time, and I want to comment a little bit on the concept of mentoring and what has kind of evolved in the mentoring industry and the training industry. And I have noticed in recent years that we have a whole new mentoring industry that has emerged, and I kind of think of it as coming in really in 2 sizes. One size fits all, and then kind of the expando version. But the one size fits all, I have found, involves mentoring programs whereby they're a fixed price. They offer a basic program. But what's so shocking, even to me, after all this time and my experience with these programs, is the extraordinary pricing. I have seen them priced anywhere from $5,000 to, and I have heard recently, as much as $25,000 to $50,000 for these mentor programs that you're hearing about on the radio, or sometimes I see an ad on television, and of course I see them all over the internet. So based upon my experience and the people that I've talked to that become involved in this program, these kinds of programs, because we encounter many of them here after they have already been in some other kind of mentor program. And I want to tell you something. For those of you that are considering a mentor or would like to have some kind of advanced training, if you want to find out quickly what it's like to be hit by a financial freight train, just enroll in one of these fixed price programs, and you'll find out in a hurry. So that's just kind of a precautionary statement. The Expando version, as I like to think of it, is kind of a new model. It's come into the market in the last, I want to say, last 3 or 4 years. It's monthly pricing, and my experience with these models, these business models, quite frankly, is a little more, I've had a little more contact with them. And generally speaking, from what I've learned myself and what I've learned from others, most of these models provide monthly pricing and monthly training that really doesn't offer a whole lot more value than you can find with a simple search string on Google. And I have found that most of the people that have enrolled in these programs have kind of drifted away after 3, 4, maybe 5 months. So I think that what I would like you to do is perhaps think a little bit about what we're doing at the Mentor Project. Hopefully some of you have been on our website to see what it is that we're doing there. I've been working with Neil for the purpose of putting together a special program for the meetup members, both his and the commercial and apartment mentor network. And I hope in the months ahead we'll be able to put together something for those of you that would like to have a mentor, would like to have some advanced training, a program that you will find helpful and very beneficial. So we'll let you know more about that as time goes on. And with that, I'd kind of like to turn it back to Neil, and I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have. Hello?
Hi, Bob. Can you hear me?
I'm with you. Did you hear me?
Yep. Bob, first question. Where do you see the Sacramento market at this point in time? So we've got a lot of people in here from the Bay Area and a lot of people that actually are not able to find useful, good properties, cap rates. We just had Lucy, who's sitting here. She was complaining about cap rates being too low in the Bay Area. Where do you see the Sacramento market when it comes to multifamily? What size of unit is the opportunity in? What are some of the value-added opportunities that you see in California, especially in Sacramento?
Well, the value-added opportunities, for the most part, Neil, have always been in the smaller buildings. The best market, really, in any urban or suburban environment is the small building market. We have always tried to concentrate on properties ranging in size from as small as 2 units up to about 20 or 25 units. This is a vastly neglected market. Most of the large commercial companies are representing and selling the larger properties. They are much fewer in number, and they're very, very difficult to find. And when you do find them, it's very difficult to find any added value in any of these properties. And you know that from your own experience here in the Bay Area. And a lot of people, just like yourself, are leaving the Bay Area and they're looking outside of California. And I think that is probably justified for people looking to purchase larger properties. Now you can define large any way you want to. I tend to cut off size based on 25 to 30 units. I think anything over 30 units is typically a larger property, and everything below 30 units is we just think of as a smaller property. And I think the real value-added opportunities are there for a lot of reasons. Many of these properties have been neglected. There are many opportunities within these properties that have been overlooked. And it's just a matter of spending some time to become familiar with the market. And the other thing, it's a much, much larger market. You can find a lot more properties to choose from, and a lot more property opportunities. And I'll tell you something, getting back to my relationship with Michael O'Keefe, one of the things that he told me during our early conversations was that the market was competitive. I want to tell you, even back then, 35 years ago, the market was competitive. Everybody thought it was overpriced then. It was no different. The feeling about real estate and real estate prices was really no different than it is today. And Mike said this to me. He said, Bob, he said, there are opportunities in every market, both large and small, no matter where you happen to be. He said, you do not have to look too far from home. He said, but you do have to look. And you have to be very much aware of the kind of property that you're looking for. He said, if you don't have any idea what you're looking for, he said, you'll never find it. He said, but if you have a clear understanding of where the value is found in these properties and how to identify value and how to create value in property where none existed before, he said, you'll find all the opportunity that you're looking for right outside your front door. He said, you don't have to go very far. And I found that that was true. It's just as true here in the Bay Area and in the Sacramento area as it is any place else. If you look long enough and hard enough, as Mike told me at the time, he said, you will find 4 to 6 properties a year that meet your investment requirements and that have clearly defined value-added opportunities that you want to take advantage of. He said, it's just a matter of determining what your value-added model is going to be and what you're going to be looking for. He said, but it's right there. He said, you don't have to travel too far from home. So I would say that that's true of the Sacramento market. I would say that it's true of the Bay Area market. And one of the nice things about the smaller property market is it's just rich with opportunities because it has so much inventory that you can explore and take advantage of. So I hope I've answered your question, but I have always felt that way about real estate markets. If you're looking for the right thing, if you're looking in the right place, and if you're looking with the right attitude and the right business model, you will find prosperity.
Well, I know there's a lot of people in the room that are happy to hear that because they've had challenges with finding, multifamilies in that smaller size. So specifically talking about the sub 30 unit market, 2 questions. So take them in whichever order you want. The first is, where do we start looking? And the second is, I know you don't want to give the 9 different value adds, but could you give us 1 or 2 value adds that we should be looking for in a property? So where, how do we start looking for these properties, and what are some of the value adds that we should be looking for so that we can get around the low cap rate issue?
Okay. One of the things that I try to discourage, especially when it comes to apartment buildings, is to forget about cap rates. A cap rate is absolutely irrelevant when it comes to an apartment building. And the reason for that is because the apartment building and the way in which income is structured in the apartment building is not consistent with the appropriate definition of a cap rate. A cap rate is a rate that is used to compare fixed rate instruments for the purpose of making some kind of decision. The fixed rate instrument might be some kind of a security that you're going to purchase. It might be a mortgage that you're going to purchase. It might be a CD that you're going to purchase. It might be a triple net property that you're going to purchase, where it is a fixed return. But the problem with apartment buildings is they are not compliant with the definition. An apartment building's cap rate can change overnight. All you have to do is increase the income a little bit or increase the vacancy. Anything that affects the profit and loss parameters of the building will change the cap rate immediately. You could have suddenly some unusual expenses that had not been anticipated. That will change your cap rates. You could have a sudden loss of income due to all kinds of things, changing market conditions. The market environment could change it. You could have poor management leading to structured vacancy. You could have any number of things that immediately affect cap rates. So I try to discourage the use of cap rates when it comes to purchasing apartment buildings. Now, as I said, it's different when you purchase a commercial property. If you're purchasing a commercial property on any kind of a net lease, whether it be a single net lease or a triple net lease, the income and expenses are fixed. They don't change. They are appropriated by contract, and you can compare the return on that investment with any other fixed rate investment. So cap rates, in my opinion, should be ignored. I think what you want to be looking for rather than cap rate is some kind of value-added opportunity. One of the best value-added opportunities may be the one that you, for example, found in Chicago. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that one of the value-added components there is a rental market that is substantially below market. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, the Chicago property.
That's a classic. That is a classic value-added play, Neil, and you have found it. You don't see it as often as you see other opportunities, but believe me, there are a lot of buildings out there, very much like the one that you located in Chicago, where the income has not been maintained in relation to market demand, and it's considerably below market demand. And where you can find properties like this, you can purchase a property at one cap rate, and by a simple increase in the rent roll, you've got a new cap rate, and you've got a much more attractive cap rate. And I think that is part of the play that you have in Chicago. Not only that, the other play, which is quite fascinating, is its location. It is a property which may have acquired renewed value, particularly since you put it under contract, based upon the announcement of the president to place his library somewhere nearby. That will add extraordinary value. So another important value-added play is to identify properties where changes in zoning or other market conditions will serve to improve the market immediately or in the very, very near future.
Got it.
I can't tell you. Let me go a little further with that, if I may, Neil. I can't tell you how many times over the years that we have looked at a piece of property with a certain disinterest, only to go down to the Planning Commission and discover that there was something about that property that had gone unnoticed by both the broker and the property owner that added extraordinary value, or had the potential of adding extraordinary value, or where we discovered that there was soon to be a zoning change or some kind of planning change that was going to enhance the location of the property in a way that had not previously been anticipated. So, as it turns out, your question is quite appropriate based upon what you've already done. You have actually created a transaction which takes advantage of two of the most critical value-added opportunities that you're going to find. Income level and changing demographics. Critical and wonderful opportunities when they're found, and you have found, I believe, that opportunity in Chicago.
Thank you. I'll take that compliment, Bob, but I have more questions for you in California, because my audience is very heavily California focused today.
Okay. Well, it just served as a very good example. That's all. It just happened that it served as a great example for your question.
You deserve the $20 that I have to give you after this event.
Okay.
So back to the opportunities. How does one go to the Planning Commission? Because I've never done that here. So you talked about looking at properties and trying to figure out if there's anything interesting about them by looking at zoning or looking at the Planning Commission. Could you describe that process for us? Because I don't think there's a lot of people in the room that understand that process or how to.
The process is very, very simple, Neil, and it's very, very critical to any investment decision. I have told my students and I have advised my clients for years that you should never, ever, ever make a purchase until you've gone down to the Planning Commission and you have discussed the property with one of the commissioners or the commissioner's advocates there at the desk. They will see you. That's what they're there to do. You can make an appointment to see them. Almost all planning commissions, planning departments, pardon me, maintain an appointment schedule, and they're very good about providing appointments for people, and you can go down at the appointed time. There will be someone there to discuss the property with you. They will take all the time that is necessary. They'll provide you with all of the information on the property, zoning, plot maps, any other information that you want. They'll provide you with the historical planning data, and they will also, generally if requested, they will provide you with anything from the general plan, extracts from the general plan that affect that particular property. It's absolutely essential that you do that, because I can tell you that there have been many, many times over the years when we've gone down to the Planning Commission and or the Planning Department office, pardon me, and we have discovered that there was a problem with the property that was not readily noticeable, either on the property upon inspection or through the cursory documents that are provided generally for people who are interested in purchasing the property. We for example, on one occasion, we went down to the planning department and we discovered that a 9-unit building that my client was going to purchase had been in an area that had been downzoned. And if there was a fire in the property and the property was destroyed to the extent of more than 50% of the improvements, the improvements could only be replaced, the property could only be replaced with 2 units of improvement. Now imagine purchasing a property based upon the income generated by 9 units, and you have a fire the next day, and now your income is predicated upon whatever you can get from the 2 units that replace it. So these are things, pardon me, go ahead.
Yeah. That was a very powerful example. How about a example on the other side? What are some of the things that we could look at from a planning commission perspective that could actually increase the value of a property? Basically give us an advantage over all the other people that are looking at it on LoopNet. I mean, something on the positive side where we see something in the planning commission docs that says, we've got something special here that nobody knows about that makes us want to buy the property.
We've run into a number of situations over the years where the new general plan was calling for new transportation requirements, which would reroute certain streets and intersections that brought properties into very important economic play that they otherwise had not enjoyed. And that's the best example. Over the years, I rather imagine that I've been involved in at least a half a dozen transactions where we were able to determine through the planning department that there was going to be changes to the streets, changes to zoning, and in some cases, there were going to, very much like the situation that you have in Chicago, there were approvals for improvements that would greatly enhance the value and the potential income value of the property that we were considering.
Fantastic. More questions from the room? Anyone else? Yes, Joe. I'm going to repeat the question back. Go ahead, Joe.
How do you find good property managers for 2 to 30 units?
Aha, excellent question. So Joe's question is, how do you find good property managers for a 2 to 30 unit property size?
Well, do you have any property managers in the room before I answer that question?
No, we don't. You're safe.
Okay. This is some commentary that people will hear in a number of the sections of our video presentations, and it's a bias, unfortunately. It's a prejudice that I've always had about property managers, but unfortunately I have met very, very few good property managers. And it's just the way that these property management contracts and agreements are constructed. They unfortunately just create too much potential and for the possibility of abuse by the property owner. And I really don't want to get into the contractual details of these agreements. It would just take too long. But generally speaking, they simply encourage abuse that is just not in the best interest of the property owner. In many cases, you can't get around it. You've got to have some kind of outside property management for the purpose of oversight. Now, here in California, of course, we have to have a property manager on site for 16 units or more. But many of these properties are also managed by off-site managers, which provide certain oversight for the on-site manager, and of course then provide all of the appropriate reporting data for the property owner. And most of these property owners are more distant property owners. Those that are closer generally do not employ off-site management if they have good on-site managers. But generally, any distance from the property, you're going to have both. And unfortunately, that's the case. But I have never, quite frankly, run into any real good property managers. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. So if you're going to employ an off-site property manager, you just have to make sure that you have the right kind of agreement, that it's tight, and you've got to manage your off-site manager carefully.
Okay, so I suppose the answer in that case really is, if you're buying units in that size, you really got to be involved, right? So you've got to be involved even if you have a property manager.
If you can, you can, you do, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, when I teach multifamily, one of my very strong biases is I believe all the good property managers fled to the larger sizes because it made financial sense for them. It was just much more lucrative and profitable. So every once in a while you'll get a rising star, but it's really hard to find them.
I agree with that. I agree with that, and I have to qualify my comments by saying that there are very, very good property managers. I have met them, I have talked to them, and they have shared their experiences with me. The problem is they're not for hire. They manage their own properties. These are large property owners that maintain aggregate portfolios, and they provide all of the off-site property management from their offices, and they are good. I met, in fact, in that case, I've met very few that are not.
Right.
But unfortunately, you can't hire them.
Makes sense. So we have about 2 minutes, so we're going to take that last question. This is from Mike Allen. He's asking a question online. What has been Bob's most effective method of finding value-added properties? Is it purchasing a list from the assessor's office and mailing owners, or is it driving around, looking for for rent signs and calling? What works, when we're looking to find these properties, whether they're value-added or.
There's only one technique, Neil. First of all, let me say, and you and I have had this conversation, LoopNet is a waste of time. And if it's on LoopNet, I wouldn't even look at it. By the time these properties get to LoopNet and other large public databases like LoopNet, they have been picked over and pretty much passed over by anyone that understands real estate investing. The only way that, and I've been in this business a long, long time, and the only successful way that I have found is a properly directed direct mail campaign with the appropriate incentives for the property owner to contact you. And I have made that the centerpiece of my business. I consider myself to be an expert at direct mail solicitation, and this is one of the things that we talk about in detail in the course of the Mentor Project training for those that are interested. It's critical if you're going to be successful in the real estate investing business. You absolutely have to be proactive. You can't depend on others. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't want to develop quality relationships with people in the business. After all, as I discussed earlier, these relationships were critical to my early success. But they are not the ones that are going to bring the good deals to you. Now, I will say this, an interesting aside, getting back to Michael O'Keefe. Michael O'Keefe, as I mentioned, did provide me with a buyer for the 42-unit property. And he turned out to be a wonderful mentor and a wonderful asset in that regard. He also became a very, very important asset later in one of the largest transactions that I ever did. It just happened to be a transaction, incidentally, in which I never met the buyer or the seller. Yet he was an integral part in it, and I have the details, and one of these days we can maybe even do a webcast on how this transaction went together. It was an absolutely fascinating transaction, but in the end, you're going to have to go direct, and you're going to have a plan to go direct, and you're going to have a plan that will encourage these property owners to contact you. And there are a number of ways to do it. You and I will be doing it hopefully together as time goes on, and I would love to share these particular techniques and methods with others because they work, and it's the only way to do it. You absolutely have to create direct contact if you're going to have any opportunity of creating a nice pipeline of value-added opportunities. It's the only way.
Fantastic. That for me.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. That was the biggest nugget of the night for me, and I'm sure offline I'm going to be asking you lots and lots of questions about that one because
okay.
If it works in California, I'm sure it works in Chicago and everywhere else as well. So,
it works everywhere, Neil, because in the end, even though we're living in the digital age, real estate is a personal business. And you are going to have to create personal contacts. And you're going to have personal relationships. And you're going to have to build these relationships based upon knowledge and trust. And I take a little issue with something that Holly said earlier about passive income. Passive income is wonderful. The only exception is you're going to have to work for it. You will have to work for it a little bit, but you won't have to work nearly as hard as you will if you're going to work for a living.
Expand on that.
Yeah, so Holly wants you to expand on that. I mean, what do you mean by having to work for this passive income?
Well, it's like any investment. You have to take, it doesn't make any difference whether you're investing in the stock market through an investment counselor, or you're investing in real estate, or you're investing in your own business. You're going to have to spend some time providing the appropriate oversight. Even in a passive income, you have to be a good consumer of whosever services you're relying on to provide you with a return on your investment. So it does require some what I would call diligent oversight, some dedicated oversight. And don't think for a moment it doesn't. You can't get involved in any kind of investment and just walk away from it. and let the other guy and rely on the other guy to do the work for you. Generally, if you've got the right people in place, they're going to do a wonderful job for you. But I like what Reagan said when he was talking about the Russians and our strategic arms agreement with them. Trust, but verify.
Makes sense. Well, thank you, Bob. That was very enlightening, and I think we'll take you up on that offer of a return webinar where you can go through those 9 value-added items for apartments.
We can do that. We can do that next month if you would like, or whenever you'd like to put it together. I just wanted to take the time this evening. It was kind of an afterthought, but I wanted to take the time this evening to share with the folks a little bit about how I got into the business and the people that were important in my life, and why they were important, and why the members of our group have to be diligent about creating the same kinds of relationships. The commercial business is not like the residential business. You can work pretty much alone in the residential business based upon the way that the databases are set up. But in the commercial business, it's a very personal business, and you cannot work in a vacuum. You just can't. You need to build relationships, both professional and investor relationships as well. So I think if there's any so-called takeaway from anything that I have said tonight, it's that it is a personal business. Build relationships with people that you can trust and whose advice you can rely on, and then build your business, whether it's as a consulting professional or as a real estate investing professional, around the same principles. Trust, and you'll be very successful. You can't miss.
Fantastic, Bob. I want to thank you for your time. Before Holly closes out the session, I wanted to talk about Chicago.
Right. Does he want to stay on?
Yeah, let's do that, because there's remote folks as well. So we're going to keep the webinar going for a few minutes. I want to just give you 2 minutes. Bob mentioned a deal that we've got going in Chicago. It's a 237 unit, very much a value add. And we've gotten lucky with that deal in that it's in a portion of South Shore in Chicago, which really is very close to a lot of good things. So the president lives in Hyde Park, a little over a mile away, and that area has 40 to 60% higher rents. Diagonally, 1.5 miles away from us, University of Chicago is buying everything in sight. They're buying single homes, they're buying duplexes, they're buying triplexes, they buy quadplexes. They have a $1 billion grant, and they want to add about 2,000 to 3,000 students worth of basically assets, because the University of Chicago is growing. They've got massive student volume. So they're about 1.5 miles away from us diagonally, and then below where we are, further south of us, we're on 67th, on 80th. And this is very fascinating. It really is worth looking at if you have 10 minutes. It's the Chicago Lakeside development. So a billionaire family in Chicago has spent the last 12 years getting all the approvals, and they finally got them done. They have the blessing of Mayor Emanuel Ram. They're building a city within a city. 14,500 homes, Class A+, their own hospital, their own high school, their own middle school, their own shopping centers, their own auditoriums. They're building an entire city, and the first phase just started. And they're selling at roughly somewhere around 5 times the per door pricing that we're buying at. So we're buying at $51,000, and it looks like they're going to be selling at $250,000 or higher. So their goal is very simple. They're 11 miles or 11.5 miles due south of Chicago Loop. And the downtown Chicago is around $500,000 a door. So their pitch is, we're going to build it at half the price, and it's going to look much nicer and be an entire city with everything that you possibly want. It's 11 miles away. Why don't you come on down from downtown and buy something bigger and nicer in this place that's brand new? And I think that's a very, very compelling pitch, especially because Lakeshore Drive, unlike most of the freeways in Chicago, doesn't have a lot of traffic. So you can actually go up to the city in about 20 minutes from Lakeshore Drive when you're going north during rush hour traffic. So fantastic opportunity for those of you that, yeah. Go ahead.
Neil, can I comment on what you just said?
Sure.
You expanded on a value-added play that I discussed just a few minutes ago. But what you're describing is the classic value-added play that institutional investors look for, and that is approvals for improvements in the surrounding area that will immediately add value to their projects without the addition of one added dollar. And it sounds very, now this is something I wasn't aware of. I didn't know that all of this was happening around your project, and that is quite fascinating. But that is classic. That is a classic value-added opportunity.
Phenomenal. So the Chicago opportunity, for those of you that are in the room, we'll play a little video for you. For those that are remote, here's a link. It has a video and our investment summary for those, if you're interested, or if you know somebody that's interested, please pass it around. We're very excited about the opportunity. I think we've underwritten it very conservatively. I get a lot more people telling me about it being over-conservative than people telling me that I've overwritten it aggressively. But it has phenomenal returns. So for those of you that are interested, please take a look at that. And I'd like to invite Holly to close the webinar. Yeah, but I'm going to do that later. Okay. So yeah, can't play the video with the people on the webinar. But go ahead.
Bob, are you there?
Hello?
Hello? Bob, are you there?
I am here,
okay,
Holly.
So great. Once again, everybody, I'm a firm believer in networking and how far it gets you in life. Can you please give them your email for people that want to stay in contact with you?
Yes, I can. It's not that easy.
Right, that's why I didn't give it out.
I can do it phonetically. Actually, let me tell them where my email is found. It'll be easier. My email address is a French expression, and it's not that easy to spell even phonetically. So you will find it right at the top of the page at thementorproject.net. thementorproject.net. Just the way it sounds, right at the top of the page. You'll see my picture, you'll see the email address, and you will see our phone number, and you are welcome to use both at any time. We welcome your calls as well as your email inquiries, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Great. And once again, my phone number is 415-317-6071. You can call, text, or email, or find out what my email is anytime. And thanks for everybody for being on the line. We're going to start the video. Bob, thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly. Bye-bye.